Hello and welcome to This Prepared Life. I'm Allison, your host, and today we have an exciting episode for you, and I am so excited for this. We have a prepper roundtable discussion with myself, Morgan from Rogue Preparedness, Miranda from Our Busy Acre, Kim, the Preppy Redhead, Adrian, Hoodoo Mountain Mama, and Des, Mother Prepper. So we declared February Women Who Prep Month, and we have been in the middle of just a challenge, encouraging everyone to post using the hashtag Women Who Prep Month. So you can go on Instagram and search that and just scroll back through an entire month of posts and topics with just hundreds of women sharing. And so to end that month, we decided it would be fun to let's just have a conversation. So we're answering some of your reader questions and having some discussions just about topics that we've been thinking about. So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. So let's go ahead and start by introducing ourselves, and we can share our name, our Instagram handle, and just, little short snippet, anything you want to share about yourself that people might not know. So I am Allison, This Prepared Life. Miranda?
My name's Miranda, and my Instagram is Our Busy Acre, and I'm really excited to be here with Allison and share all about preparedness because it is Women Who Prep Month.
Morgan?
Hey everyone, my name is Morgan and I'm with Rogue Preparedness. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here too, ending the Women Who Prep Month and just talking about preparedness in general. Yay!
Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim. My Instagram is the Preppy Redhead. And just like everyone else, I'm really excited to do this. Great way to start the day.
Adrian?
Hi, I'm Adrian. Happy to be here. I'm Hoodoo Mountain Mama on Instagram, and we are empty nesters and off-gridders and enjoying life.
Des?
Hey, I am Des, otherwise known as Mother Prepper on Instagram. I'm sharing my own preparedness journey in a suburban environment and trying to get this micro homestead off the ground. So happy to be here and talk with you ladies.
I am so excited to have you all here on the podcast and just doing this roundtable discussion. And we are in the middle of Women Who Prep Month, and we declared our own month, which is pretty awesome. And I have just so enjoyed all of the posts from the hundreds of women who are sharing. And I would love to hear from you guys just what have been your favorite parts about Women Who Prep Month. Miranda?
I think one of my favorite things, especially yesterday, was seeing a lot of the posts that people were talking about women who have inspired them on their prepping journey. And I loved seeing all of the women talk about their grandmothers. And I know myself personally, that has always been something that I aspire to be. I want my granddaughters to be in the kitchen with me when I'm an old woman cooking. And I think this is just a really exciting time in history, even though it's a scary time. It's a really exciting time because we are all bringing back the things that were wonderful about our country and all the things that made women strong in the homes and in their families. And I just think it's really cool to be part of that movement that's happening right now and to see it. And I love starting, my morning coffee, seeing that inspiration every day.
Morgan, what do you think?
I have been so blown away by everybody's participation in Women Who Prep Month, and just seeing what everyone has to say is amazing. Like every one of us has some sort of unique something to say, and every account I see is just that. It's just something unique, and I'm learning from them, and we're all learning from each other, and it's just like it's really cool. And I love that we declared this the Women Who Prep Month, because I think that this was really needed, to be quite honest. And I'm really thrilled to just see everybody and support each other as well.
I couldn't agree more. That's awesome. Kim, what are your thoughts?
For me, I really think that meeting so many um, uh, women that I didn't know before, like accounts where maybe I had seen, their handle would pop up in my feed, but then I would never see them again. And just to have those conversations through DMs, I think has just been so fun this month. Like I plan on continuing that on. Like I've just made some good friends, I think. And also just the fact that I feel like this community of women is breaking the norms of what social media is. Like everyone is just so uplifting and so encouraging and so helpful, and so kind and generous with their time and answering questions. And I just think that that is so far from what social media has really represented, over the last few years. So I think it's great. I just love it.
What about you, Des?
It's really inspiring to see how many women are taking preparedness into their own hands and giving a glimpse into what that means for their family and their area. I'm always inspired when I see people post, whatever the topic of discussion is and how they're making that their own journey for where they are. So it's really cool to see, just because my dynamic is maybe different than the next person, and it's quite different from everybody on our podcast today. And it's just really awesome to see how people are integrating preparedness into their daily lives and just making it a habit. So it's so inspiring, it's so uplifting. Just like Kim said, it's very different from what you usually see in the social media circles. As it's truly a community that wants people to succeed and to succeed together. So I love the investment everybody's pouring into the community as this whole movement continues.
Adrian, what are your thoughts?
This Women Who Prep Month has been an eye-opening experience for me, and my favorite parts are the fact that we have opened up and given permission to women to create a tribe of support. Everyone who is following us or that we're following are following one another because generally we're like-minded, and it's much different, like the other ladies mentioned, than social media, where there's a lot of people picking on one another. This environment that we've made is nothing but support, and I just love the community and how many friends we're making.
So one of the things I did earlier this week on Instagram is I just kind of threw out a question box and I asked my followers, and I know some of you shared that as well. And we had, quite a few good responses of questions. So I wanted to just throw some of these questions out to you guys, and let's just have some discussion about that. The first question is from Jen at Serenity Hill Farmstead. And I thought this one was kind of a fun question. And it was, if you could buy or set up one thing, no price limit, what would it be? Miranda, do you want to start?
That is a very easy one for me, and that is a Harvest Right freeze dryer. I want one. I want one bad. It's in our plans, but hasn't happened yet, but it's going to.
Morgan, what would yours be?
I have to say the exact same thing. The freeze dryer, 100%. It's gonna happen one day. One day, I will have you.
Kim, what about you?
I already have a freeze dryer, so um, and that was not a dig at you, Miranda or Morgan. I saved for a long time for that. And I can't wait till you get them and we can talk about it. But for me, I think it would be a massive, fully climate controlled and irrigated greenhouse.
Adrian, what about you?
Mine would be, like Kim, a greenhouse. That's on our list of things. Money is in the way. A real solar oven. There's a few brands out there I've looked at. They are so expensive. And a solar dehydrator. But I do have plans to try to build each of these myself this summer, so we'll see.
Des, what about you?
Well, if I can't buy a 20-acre farm from Amazon, I guess I'm going to have to say um the Harvest Right freeze dryer also. That has been I've been ever since I learned about that as an option from you ladies, I've been obsessed. And so I'm just trying to scrape some pennies together and start a sinking fund for a Harvest Right freeze dryer. So Harvest Right, if you're listening, we have a band of amazing ladies here that would really love one.
That's funny. I feel like you guys are all realistic. I'm like, I want a bunker.
Me
I
too.
just I just want to go into my bunker and decorate and have lines of food and cots, and it would be so pretty. So yeah. Um
Do you mean like one of those bunkers that you hear like on some of those TV shows that they're showing, or they're selling the pods like in a community, or do you want one just your own in some unmarked part of your land?
I want my own bunker that no one knows is there. Yeah,
You
no
know,
community bunker.
Allison, I was gonna say, and then I changed my mind at the last minute, so maybe I should change it back. That I want a RV that has full solar with battery backup system, and an extra trailer for storage, so that I could move it anywhere. So kind of a mobile bunker.
That's what I had for the longest time, for like a couple years. RV with the solar and everything. It was amazing. I think the only thing that I would do differently with that system again, and for advice, is make it diesel. Make sure you have a diesel RV so that you have a lot more options with your fuel. Of course, you have the solar and everything, but if you still want to make it mobile, diesel.
Right.
Morgan, you're raising your hand. Oh,
My
okay.
bad. I forgot to
Um,
unclick it.
it's like, do you have more to say? Say it. Um, you just said something about fuel, Morgan, and a lot of people ask questions of me about fuel, and I really feel like, one, that's not my wheelhouse. I don't keep fuel in my kitchen. It's something Joe kind of handles, so I don't know a lot about. How do you guys handle fuel?
You don't keep fuel in your kitchen? Why not? It's like the best place for it.
We have, this is Miranda talking, but I know on our property we have a propane tank. When we moved in, it was there, and we've never used it. But we just make sure that we have like extra hoses if we needed to use it. And we kind of took the plunge a couple months ago and got I think it's a 55 or 65 gallon fuel drum, and filled that up with fuel stabilizer. And my husband welded up a cool little cart for it, to be able to move it around if we had to push it anywhere on the property to fuel anything up.
Does
Yeah, I live in a really suburban and urban environment, so I'd love to say I have just drums of fuel that I can keep on my property, but I can't. So in my situation, we are rotating, a few of those, 5 or 7 gallon containers of fuel and storing them safely. We bought a completely different, shed so we can move things that were taking up space where we wanted to store our fuel, and just trying to be diligent about rotating it, because it's pretty much the extent of what I can do on where I live, but also making sure to have alternative fuel available. So aside from the gasoline that we rotate, having propane, multiple uh, sources of fuel, just to make sure that we have options, if should we need. So that's been working for us in kind of the suburban environment because we're kind of limited on space and options sometimes.
Kim?
So for us, our backup power source right now is a whole house generator, dual fuel. And so we do keep some gasoline, but it's much harder to store gasoline long term. So it also runs on propane, which is generally what we run it on. And so we have a few of the 100-pound tanks of propane that we have stored. We redid our deck last year, and so we keep them, underneath that deck, and then some smaller ones for like the barbecue and stuff. But we make sure that anytime we use those, we keep those full. And then I think for me, eventually, I would like to move to a solar setup as a backup option. So solar and batteries, that's on the list, but it'll be a while.
Morgan?
Okay, so yeah, what you guys were saying, all fantastic, fantastic advice for the suburb. And Miranda, the fuel on wheels, pretty genius. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so smart. And I think the biggest thing that people really have to think about with any of their fuel sources or energy or anything that we're thinking about is preserving it or keeping it safe and covered or whatever needs to happen. So like with gas only lasts a couple months when it's pulled from the ground. And so when you go to the gas station, fill up some tanks, whatever, you need to put that the fuel extender in it, and then even then it'll last about a year. And then you will have to rotate that fuel. So use it in your generator, use it in your lawnmower, use it in, whatever. And, just kind of change it out. And when, like, if you're using it constantly and you're just kind of putting more in, you will have to put more of that gas extender. I'm not thinking of the exact name right now. It's bothering me. It'll come to me in about a couple hours. Okay. So, and then with the propane, you really want a good propane tank. Like if your propane tank has, like if it's corroded on the outside or something, it's, get a nice propane tank and keep it, yeah, stabilizer, Miranda just said. I hear her typing because she's not muted. She was vigorously typing, stabilizer! She's okay, there she goes. Anyway, okay, so yeah, so the stabilizer and the gas, and then yeah, a good propane, keeping it covered. A lot of people say like they put it in the snow and stuff like that. And which is okay, but the outside will corrode and it could affect the inside as well. So just keep those tanks in good condition. And so diesel, if you're going to do diesel, like if you have a whole house diesel or something like that, super great. But with all these things, whether it's solar, diesel, gas, whatever, make sure that you have all the maintenance tools and everything to go along with it, because these things can absolutely fail, especially with solar. Like we had to change out our batteries. We had to, like our inverters failed at some point, this, that, and the other. And, it's just all these things that you kind of got to keep in mind with all these running things with running parts. So, but fuel, sorry, I'll stick with fuel. I think that was the original question. I'll stop.
You could just talk for hours. I always feel like I learn so much when you talk, Morgan. You're just a wealth of information.
Oh, thanks. Okay. I feel like I'm just rambling all the time. So yay.
Here's another question. This is from Fat Mom of 5. And she says, what would your experienced prepper self say to your newbie prepper self? Does anyone want to start with that one?
I'll start. I would just say, just get started now. And I know there's a lot of, anxiety when people, decide to start their preparedness journey, because you think of all the things you got to buy and all the things you got to do and change. But it really is something that you can start today without even having to, immediately go to the store or make some major changes. Even just looking into your pantry and assessing what your family eats day to day, what their preferences are, what making note of dietary limitations and medical needs, and making sure you're gathering people's contact information and phone numbers. I mean, I know we can go on and on about ways to start without it feeling like this mounting task, because I feel like, at least for me, my preparedness journey has been this constant, like, additional layers of things that I'm building onto my own preparedness kind of bubble, right? Like, you can start very small and then you just add additional layers, and those layers could be new skills, it could be your food pantry, it could be training yourself to be more situationally aware. There's a number of ways to constantly work on this idea of your family's preparedness, and it doesn't have to feel like this mounting task that just provokes a bunch of anxiety. That was what I wanted to say. Sorry.
Adrian?
Yeah. If we were going to go to the very, very beginning, very baby first step, like, oh no, they've shut us down for 2 weeks, prepper, that would be my recommendation, is to just decide, get a focus. What are you preparing for? My case this summer, I knew student teaching was coming up for 2 months without an income for me. So that was my driving force all summer long, was to make sure I had a minimum of our 2 months of needs, bank account, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, the first thing was focus. What are you preparing for? Weather events that happen in your region, medical problems, job loss, etc. That's just what I would say.
Kim?
For me, is just don't do it from a place of fear. I think when I first got started, I did what a lot of people do, and that was I ended up with, 75 pounds of beans and rice and, 10 cases of soup and things like that. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for beans and rice and soup, because there is, but you can't survive on just beans and rice and soup and canned soup. And if you're not going to rotate through it, it's really just a waste. So I think I concur with Adrian, is that you really have to have a plan and focus on skills along with what you're buying. So to learn things is free. To buy things, you need to make a budget and you need to decide what's important. And then I see so many people focus on food only, right? Food or water. But like, I did that in the very beginning, but it was like, okay, if there's a power outage, how do I heat my home? I don't have a way to do that. Or how do I keep that food good? So I think really having an all well-rounded plan is so important. Um, and I think it takes the desperation out of it. Like, people, when they wake up and they're like, I really need to get prepared, but how do I do it? And then this from this place of fear or desperation, where people start, buying lots of things that maybe they're never going to use, or that really, their family doesn't eat, things like that. So that would be my recommendation, is just to really sit down and have a plan and decide, like, hey, I'm going to prepare for 2 weeks, and then from there, like, I'm going to prepare for a month, and then from there, like, how does that look, and then incorporate skills with it. That would be my suggestion.
I'm pretty similar, but a little bit different. So my answer would be to plan, but not get stuck in that planning. As a type A person, I very much like to make my lists and check them off and get them done. But I think sometimes that can freeze people, and then you get stuck making the plan but not taking any action on the plan. So for me, looking back into the beginning, I would, like Des said, I would just start and look in my kitchen cabinets and prep those things while I am making a plan. That's my answer. Morgan, what's yours?
Yeah, to go along with what you and Des were essentially saying, it's that whole taking action. Exactly like what you guys are saying, is kind of paralyzing. But you do it at the same time, but it's like, there's I hear it every day, people saying, oh, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start, because all they're doing is watching videos or reading blogs or reading books, which is great, but there's nothing else happening. So it's just the reading, it's just the watching the videos. And so you want to do that in conjunction with going on your next grocery store visit, buying that, can of whatever, or, doing something along with all that stuff. So yeah, that was basically what I was going to say too. You just really need to take action in conjunction with learning. It has to be a at the same time thing. So
Miranda?
I think I agree with everybody's answer on this, and honestly don't really have too much to add because I think everybody said what I was going to say. But I do have a lot of women in particular that will message me kind of the same sentiment. I don't know where to start. I feel overwhelmed. What would be your advice for somebody just starting out? And everybody's situation is so different. So that's a really hard question to answer to people without asking a lot of questions. But like several of the ladies said, what is your situation? Some of you might have newborn babies. If that was it, I would think about my children immediately. How am I going to clothe and feed them if something happens? If you're empty nesters, you have an entirely different prep plan. So as everybody knows, I'm a huge fan of lists. And I think the best thing to do to get started is to really sit down and make some serious lists. Go through your cabinets, go through your medicine cabinets, go through your cleaning cabinets, go through your entire house and really assess everything. You can't start prepping unless you start assessing things first. And I think that was, I don't know if it was necessarily a mistake, but something that maybe I did in times past where I would just go on a tangent where I would think, okay, I just need to stock up. And I would stock up without making a plan first. And I think I've become really diligent with keeping things organized to the point where I know exactly what I'm low on and what I need to top off. So lists, organization, and really understanding what you're prepping for. And that would be my advice.
Those are great answers. I love how, we all have our own answers and we're all so unique in them. But we all just think so similarly, and I love that. Kim, you brought up skills, and I think that my personal opinion, at least, when you go off into the internet and you start researching prepping, skills are highly underrated. And I would love to hear what you guys think, at least for you personally. What are your top skills? Miranda, are you raising your hand because you want to start?
Oh, nope, I didn't know my hand was raised, but I will start since
Okay.
it was raised. I know myself personally. I think I know my strengths and my weaknesses for sure, very aware of them. And I think my strengths would definitely be cooking and being able to, I mean, I could go out and like cook a meal out of like nuts and grass in the backyard if I had to and make it like taste good. I feel like I don't have any worries in that department. And just keeping calm and control over my home in an SHTF situation, I think that that's something I've kind of really tried to work on and harness as a mom and a wife is just always, I've said it before, but like keep the home fires burning, keep things coming always from a place of calm and preparedness. I think definitely my weak points would be, actual skills like butchering a rabbit if I had to, starting a fire from scratch. These are things that I do not. I'm still working really hard to try to keep a tomato plant alive. So I know I need to work on more actual survival skills, but comfort skills would be probably my strength.
Morgan.
Yeah, so I want to piggyback off of what Miranda's saying here about personalization too. When we're talking about skills, like I can rattle off all the skills that I think is super important, but maybe you're either not going to be ready for them or, you just don't think they're that important, and that's fine. Um, so really when it comes to your skills, like almost exactly what Miranda was saying about she knows her weaknesses. And that's something we all have to come into terms with. A long time ago, a couple of years, well, it's a few years now, I realized I was very weak in any type of medical. I mean, I just knew nothing. I mean, I knew how to take out alcohol and a Band-Aid, and that was pretty much it. And so I was like, well, that's just not going to cut it. And so, when we are thinking about skills that we want to learn, um, again, everybody can rattle off skills to you, but I think one of the best places to start is breaking out a piece of paper and pen and writing out skills, getting true to yourself and taking an assessment of yourself. What do I already, what am I really good at? What am I weak at? What can I learn? And so write a list of things that you're really good at, build yourself up, and then write a list of things that you're not so great and you could really use help, because we all use help on something. And then start working on those skills, and then keep practicing the skills that you're still good at, because you don't want those to go stale either. So, but just start at the top and work at one skill at a time. Spend a little bit of devoted time to it. I think that's really important too. Don't just one and done. Spend a little bit of time on these skills, either whether it's throughout a month, a year, whatever. Repetition is going to be key.
Kim?
Okay, so for me, a little bit different. I think when I really started preparing, we'll just talk in the area of food. Um, I have celiac disease, so really altering, like, what would I do in a situation where I couldn't easily get to the store? Some gluten-free flours don't last as long as regular flours. So I would say that my skill that's unique to me is really adapting to that, and what does that look like, and freeze drying corn, for instance, so that I can make cornmeal, because it does me no good to keep 50 pounds of flour. I can't eat that. So I would say that's my skill, is really adapting as someone with celiac disease to long-term storage. And then I would say my weakness is anything first aid. So I see blood and I literally almost pass out. I'm really trying to work through that. My husband cut his eye open not too long ago, and I did not pass out, but I also could not look at it. So I don't really know how to fix that. But I did get the suture kit that you practice at home, so I am going to try and do that. But that really is a weak point, is that if anyone required first aid and I was the one that needed to give that to them, that would just be so traumatic. Um, I think that's it. Did I answered everything right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Adrian, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm just trying to undo my hand. For me, when we're talking about skills and preparedness, and me living up here on the mountain, when I stop and think, I want to know that I can do everything that Vern does, my husband, when he's here. Like, can I run the chainsaw if there's a tree across the road and I can't go? Can I roll the big old 500-pound hay bales if he's not here? Can I fill up our water tanks inside the house when he's not here? So I need to know that I can do those things if it's just me for whatever reason. And I would also add, I think all of us, especially women, I think we get in our own way. I think we need to give ourselves grace, and then you need to be confident in your ability to learn something. Like, you made it to this point in your life, right? And you're a successful adult. You're taking care of yourself. You can obviously learn things. You're very, very capable. And I just think that's important, that we need to honor mistakes. Those are always something that we learn from. Okay, so now we know what doesn't work. And so try again. And finally, don't be afraid to try. Like, seriously, right now, I could get you to the hospital in a stick shift, but we're going to run some red lights, but I'll get you there. So that's something I need to work on this summer, but I got to be okay and open minded that I can do this. So that's just my recommendations.
Those are great. I think, yeah, I just agree with everything all of you said. I think my skill weaknesses are definitely medical as well. And, sometimes I know that, I focus on food preservation and our food storage and our gardens and our livestock. And so those are very, like, things I'm very good at. And so I tend to just sometimes I will ignore the other things because it's just easier, and I shouldn't, but I do. So, but I also think that, with skills, that is where community is also important because we can't know everything. Like, I cannot know everything. I can have basic skills in some things, but I can't, be the medic and the militia and the gardener and the everything in a SHTF scenario. Yeah. So another follower question, and I am not going to share her name because she likes to be private. And she asked about time management, and she works full time. And several of us work full time. So I was hoping you ladies would jump in with how you manage your job and your family and your home and prepping as part of that. All the hands raised at once. We'll start with Des.
Awesome. I also work full time, and there's times where I just feel like I am run really thin, and I wish I had more than 24 hours in a day. But I think with time management, you really have to look at what items you want to tackle take priority, right? Because as a a working mom, it definitely feels like I wish I had more time to dedicate to preparedness, being able to like test my gear and make all the amazing lists and go to Costco and find the things that I need to keep my rotations going. And so it can definitely feel like you are in this uphill battle, but it has helped me quite a bit to physically write down the things that I know are on my to-do list or my task list and prioritizing them based on what I know my day is going to look like, what I know my weekend's going to look like. You can always tell what is most important to our family by how we're planning our free time, and that's really just a decision my husband and I made, where if we know we want to definitely get something done, building in the time to see it through. So for example, right now we are getting chicks so we can have chickens, and we don't have a coop yet. And so that's definitely a very urgent task that we need to get on. And so it's not something that you can just build in one day. Maybe if you're, superwoman, like some of these ladies on here, you can do that one day and knock it out. But for us, because much of our day is spoken for and much of our week is spoken for, understanding where we can fit in time on our lunch hour after work and work on it together, and in the meantime making sure we have the right supplies so that we're not behind schedule. So it takes a lot of proactive planning and forethought to make sure that you're getting the things done that you need to, but it can be done. And I think your willingness to work it into your day is a reflection of how important these things are to you. So that was kind of my soapbox speech on that.
Kim?
Yeah, pretty much exactly the same as what Des said. Although my children are grown and don't live in the home, so my husband and I are empty nesters, but I do manage a large organization, so my work week is generally 50 or 60 hours a week. Thankfully, I do work from home, so that's pretty awesome. I don't know how I did it when I was commuting up to 4 hours a day. I just don't remember. I got it done, but it's much easier now that I work from home. And just exactly like what Des said, is that you have to plan it out. So my weekends are very busy. They're not restful. We will, decide like, okay, we're going to hit Costco in the morning, and then, Aldi or Sprouts in the afternoon. And then we have to get home because we have to get, garden beds built or whatever. So they're very, very planned out and very specific on what we're going to accomplish each weekend. Um, and then sometimes we don't have time, so we'll have to run out after work and go handle things in the evening. But I really think that just having a plan of what you need to accomplish that's realistic is the easiest way to do it. And then just stick to your plan.
Morgan?
Yeah. So I'm kind of the planner, and I'm also very like impulsive too. So like I've been in both situations where I've worked full time. I worked full time, but I did not have children. And then I have worked from home with children. And so, both, it kind of doesn't matter what else is taking up your time. It's all kind of just prioritizing, and being flexible, I think, is something that I have to give myself grace for. So, like I have a lot on my to-do plate, but my kids, they really do come first. And so, sometimes throughout the day, I'm just like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to go bake this and cook this, and I have to, go make this video and do this, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, you know what? That can be pushed a little bit. Let's go to the park instead, or let's go, or let's bake together, or let's do something, So being flexible and changing priorities a little bit is something I've had to really come to terms with a lot. And but there are some things that I'm very specific about. So like if I need to write an article, if I have to get a YouTube done or whatever, I have an app on my phone that's called Alarmed. A lot of people just use their calendar or something like that, but I like this because it gives me notifications and it won't go away until I mark it done. And so I have to be very, very specific and prioritize those specific things. So I say, today I'm going to write this. Today I'm going to record this YouTube video. But I'm also kind of sporadic as well. Like I have food that needs to go in Mylar bags, but I don't plan when I'm going to do it. It just kind of sits there in the abyss until I figure out some time to do it, even though it takes like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do it, whatever. It's not a prioritized task because I know that it can sit there for a little bit. So things that can't wait, I'll do that first. Okay, I'm done.
Adrienne?
I feel like my perspective might be a little bit different than most when we're talking about time management, mostly because I think there's two categories that we get a lot of questions for. Time management as a full-time employee somewhere or working full-time for a homestead versus time management for prepping. And in most of the ladies here, our worlds are both. And so I think that needs to be clarified a little bit. Prepping is more like, in my mind anyway, for me personally, prepping has become more of a making sure that our physical needs are met with the food, the medical kits, like you guys are saying, the famous toilet paper, all that stuff. Homesteading is more self-sufficiency and it's really chore related. And so if you're working full time, it's really beneficial to consider starting small, homesteading like Des and her chickens. But making sure that you're planting a garden of food that you eat, that you're not wasting your valuable time on food that you guys don't like. And also planting the garden in such a way that it's kind of self-maintaining. So there's not tons of weeding involved. There's not tons of chores related. I think it's important to really consider that your time is worth money no matter where you're spending it.
That's great. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that one before I move on?
Well, I don't work per se out of the home, but I do work in the home, and I just make lists. Gotta make a list. Don't get a lot done without a list. So that's just my advice on that.
I hear you on the lists. I have a big book and I just write my daily list in there and then go through it every now and then to look at what did not get done and add that to my new list. Lists are good. We were talking a little bit, I think Des brought this topic up before we started recording, just kind of, about the state of our country, the state of the world right now, and doom and gloom. And we use the hashtag prepared not scared. Let's all share a little bit about just how you keep yourself focused when sometimes it seems like the world is falling apart around us. And Morgan is raising her hand, so she gets to start.
I'm ready. This is a good question, good topic. And as I'm sure we all get all day, this whole thing of, the world is coming to an end and all this inflation and just exactly what you're saying, Allison, of the doom and gloom and all this. And it's rough. It can really take a rough toll on us mentally, physically, can make us feel like we just, what's the point? But that's just it. Like, we can't control those things. So I'm not going to control those things. I'm going to control what I can control, which is taking care of the household, taking care of my children, teaching them, teaching myself, and trying to help others. And, making sure our food is being taken care of and our needs and our wants and focusing on that. I totally get wild sometimes and I'm like, oh my gosh, avocados are no longer going to be in the store. What am I going to do? And I start freaking out and I'm like, I need to buy all the avocados and then I'll try to mash them all up and I'll put them in the freezer. I'll make some guacamole. And like, I get all wild and I'm like, you know what? If I can't do that right now, it's totally fine. I don't want to live in a world without avocados, but I will if I must. But, it's just one of those things. Like, we kind of have to just work with what we have. If we don't have a ton of money, what can we do? Can we go to the thrift store? Can we, focus on the sales? What can we do for our own personal situations in order to control what we can control?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, for me and Joe, I think sometimes we balance each other out. And if like he is having a, oh my gosh, moment, I can balance that out for him and vice versa. As an example, I think it was yesterday or the day before, he comes in with his phone and he's like, did you see this? I'm going to drive to Bozeman to pick up the Apocalypse well pump. And I'm like, babe, calm down. Just chill for a little bit. So yeah, controlling what we can control and not letting like news headlines, they want us to be crazy and scared, and putting our focus where it should be and the things that we can control is just so important. Kim?
So mine's going to be a little bit of a different approach. I hope that it's not a secret that I'm a Christian, and the fact that the Bible is pretty clear about how it ends, and that's not a secret either. And so I truly believe those things, and I do believe that it's going to get way worse before it gets better. So for me, I do tend to get like this morning, Russia invaded Ukraine. And so that immediately sets me to like start to feel stressed. And what does that mean for us? And what about all those poor people in the Ukraine? What's going to happen to them? And so, really, for me, the only way that I can um, not be stressed out by just the condition of this world and the things that our leaders, the decisions that they're making, is through prayer. And that's it.
Des?
Um, I feel like a lot of my decision and trying to protect both my emotional and mental health around, things that are happening in the world really come from my family and specifically my daughter, right? Because I feel like a lot of this desire to prep and to turn on this mama bear and protector switch, right, really stem from my role as a mother and being responsible for the well-being of my child and my family. So for me, I feel like very much in line with what has been said before, where you want to focus on what you can control. You want to focus on your family and the things that you can influence, within your four walls, because there's things that are happening around us at any given time where us having an opinion or us freaking out is not going to change the outcome. As much as I'd like to say like everybody can influence and be the change, sometimes it's just not. It's just with outside of your scope of influence. So kind of, I think for me, having that hard truth realized and understanding, okay, I need to do away with the things I can't control and focus on the things and pour my energy into things I can control. If inflation is causing the shelves to not only be bare but super expensive, this is my call to action to strategize. How can we make our budget stretch further? How can we grow our own food? How can we preserve our food for the days to come? And how can we really take responsibility of those things? So for me, a lot of the things that are happening around you can definitely weigh on you. But when I think of the impact that I'm having on my family and my children and my community, and kind of speaking things into existence, meaning like the fact that I'm on this preparedness journey and having these conversations with people, neighbors, friends, about the importance of preparedness and thinking forward, I feel like it's an outward ripple of thinking about the things we can control, especially on a community level, where we are inspiring people to take action in their own homes and their own days and lives, so that we don't find ourselves in an area where we're unprepared, um, for different things to come. So that's kind of my mindless rant about it. But it really comes down to the same messaging, where you want to focus on the things you can control. And I'm not saying turn off the news and don't like turn it off, but understand where you have influence and where you don't, and really pour love and effort into the things that you can see grow, and that you have influence over.
Adrian?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something short. For myself, I listen to podcasts quite a bit on my commute to work in the morning and in the afternoons. And I'll go, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks with that. And then I'll hit this real low, like super depressed. And then I'll realize I need a break. So turn it off, take a break, be intentional about it. Try to be aware when you are slipping into that, the dark spot. And then when I've had my break, I get back to my being proactive rather than reactive. And so, like our most recent headlines right now, the stuff that's happening in Canada, I'm really hoping that continues, and I'm comfortable with it because I prepared. Like, bring it on. Let's do this so we can make change. I'm ready. So proactive versus reactive, and taking a break when you need.
Kim, Des, you're both raising your hand. Do you have more to add?
No, sorry, I forgot to take it down, Allison.
Same.
It's okay. I didn't want to skip over you if you had something more to say. We are coming up on an hour, and I know we wanted to just kind of keep this short. I know we could probably talk all day long. So let's end with what I think is maybe a fun topic. I don't know what you guys think. So someone asked, where should I buy land? And that's, not an answer we can give them, but why don't you guys share a little bit about where you live? I know we are across the country. Why you live there, and then any things that are unique about your situation. I mean, if you're on land or in the city or just that kind of stuff. Kim, you can go first.
Okay. So I don't necessarily give my specific city name, just something that my husband asked me not to do, so I don't. But I do live in a very, very rural mountain community in Southern California. So, why I live here, I born and raised in Southern California, and to me, the town that I live in is as not California as I've found in this state. So very conservative leaning, great people. Like I said, it's really small. We don't have chain stores here. Everything is independently owned. It's really a community of people that come together to help each other. I mean, I love that about here. Now, we do not plan on retiring in California. So when my husband and I retire, we will follow my grandchildren out of this state and into Arizona. So I will be going from a high altitude mountain community that gets lots of snow in the wintertime to a desert community where I'm going to have to relearn pretty much everything I know about gardening. We are really excited about that though. And I think that if I had a choice of like if I could go anywhere I wanted to go, and it wasn't driven by family or anything like that, I really like the South. And um, I've I've visited many times over the last 10 years, and there's just something about being in the South that I love. I love the people. So like if I could, it would be probably like Louisiana or um, maybe even Mississippi. So that's it. And it's just really because I just love the people there. I love the climate. I like humidity, which is crazy because I'm coming from California going to Arizona, so where there is zero humidity. So I know that's funny, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Miranda?
I am a Southern girl, Kim, and I think you do just fine in the South. You just love it. I was raised in Florida, and I met my husband. He was stationed in Alabama, so I lived there for a brief time with him. But we live in Oklahoma, and I absolutely love Oklahoma for a lot of reasons, but especially in this day and age, there are what I would consider the best personal freedoms in the United States: homeschool freedoms, medical freedoms, 2A rights. It's a very obviously heavily conservative state, but Oklahoma is huge on personal freedoms, and that was a big draw for my husband and myself. But I think the best thing I love about this area is just that we're close to a lot of things we need, but we're also, even though we're in the suburbs, we feel like we're way out in the country, and it just works really nice for us. We're able to have our chickens, and we're not like the weirdos in the neighborhood. Everybody's got chickens, everybody's building greenhouses, and it's a lot of like-minded people. Our neighbors have like deer stands in their trees, and um, the homeschool community here is huge, and there's a lot of support, and I love it. I do. Sometimes I miss being in the South, but I feel like the Midwest is, I mean, I guess we're like Southern Midwest, it's the same mentality, and everybody's just super friendly. And um, even though I love the South, I do want to come visit all my North Idaho women at some point. I don't know if I can
Oh
hack it up there
yes,
full
I'm right
time,
there
but I
with you,
definitely want to
Miranda.
come visit.
Let's road trip. Go visit those North Idaho women when there's not 2,500 feet of snow.
I'll
Come,
do it.
we will welcome you. Um, so Joe and I live in North Idaho, and we are from Southwest Washington, and we were raised there. We grew up there. We, raised our children in their younger years there. And we really moved for political reasons. Early 2020, we saw what we thought might be happening in Washington, and we were like, yeah, it's time to go. Um, and so we chose North Idaho. We had always thought about living here in North Idaho, but it was always, well, maybe after retirement and after the kids are gone. And we love it here. I love, like all the things you were saying, Miranda. It's like, I feel like North Idaho is very much like that. And there's a lot of preparedness minded people, and homesteading is just normal. Like, no one bats an eye when you talk about canning food or gardening or livestock. It's just what people do. So that we love North Idaho for all of those reasons, and I love the snow. So, which is funny because I also hate the snow, but I love the snow. So, yeah. Adrian.
Yeah. So our story is a little bit different. We married very young in our teen years. And for the first 25 years of our marriage, we were caretakers for a millionaire and his ranch. And so we didn't have the responsibilities of land payments, mortgage payments, any of that. And I homeschooled our kids, and they grew up running out to the garden with their dad or working the cows with their dad or any of those things. And then COVID came. Well, then our boss, our owner, died, and then his wife died, and then it was like every Lifetime story you've ever seen, where the stepkids inherit things and everything changes drastically. So we left, and we rented for the first time in 25 years. We rented for 2 years, and then COVID hit, and my oldest was a senior, and she finished her schooling online. She moved out, and we were empty nesters. And my husband said, "It's time." We had inherited 5 acres, so that June we moved onto the 5 acres in the back of a pickup truck's camper. And we lived in that camper for the whole summer while we made this 5 acres of land our home. And then that December, 30 acres that surrounded 3 boundaries of our 5 came up for sale. And we had the opportunity to buy it, and it was definitely a God thing because it all came together. And now we have 35 acres that we get to call home up here in the mountains of North Idaho, where you drive along the dirt road to get here. There are numerous "Don't Tread on Me" flags. Everyone's political affiliation, and it kind of makes you feel good. And everyone up here is very respectful of each other. And I don't want to ever leave. This is home. This is my escape from the real world. So,
Morgan, you want to weigh in?
So I've been all over. I was born and raised in Oregon, and I got antsy, and so I traveled a lot. I've been all over the US. I've been international, been all over the place. And you know, I've lived in the extreme cold for a little bit in Alaska, and found out it was not correct for me, not quite right. Wasn't a perfect fit, but that's okay. I think out of all of our stories and things, I think one of the biggest things people have to keep in mind is it's okay to be flexible about where you live, and it's fine to want to live somewhere that aligns with your values and your views. And even if it's your political values and your beliefs and things like that, it's fine. And, even if you go to a place that you thought was going to be fantastic and you're like, you know what, this just isn't working out, go. And, sell some things, sell your house or property, or, do whatever you have to in order to make it work for you. And so, we've, just always made it work for us. And so I've lived in the city more than I've lived in the country, though. I've only lived a country life in the past couple of years of rural homesteading, but I'm back to urban homesteading now, and I'm really excited. It's different, but it's, a lot of people always say that urban homesteaders and things just won't make it. They won't last any of this, but not all cities are equal. They're not all the same. And the suburban areas, they're not all the same. Like what Miranda was saying about her little town and thing, and what everybody here has been saying about their own little specific area. You get to know your neighbors, and they, you just want somewhere that's going to align with you. And so that's basically what I have to say about it. I think it's totally fine to live in an urban area. You urban homestead and you make it work. That's all I have to say.
Miranda?
I was just going to chime in here because I don't know if any of you hear this from followers and friends on Instagram, but I've had so many people over the last year message me saying they were thinking about moving, or they wanted to move but couldn't imagine doing it, or a variety of responses. I love to tell people, do it. If you are feeling a stirring inside of you, do it. And everything Morgan just said, I just felt that to my core. And I heard a quote, or I read it a long time ago, and it said, "You're not a tree. If you don't like where you're at, move." And I just think right now, this day and age, that is so important to hear loud and clear. And if you're feeling a pulling for your family or yourself to be somewhere else, listen to that and act on it.
Des, did you want to answer?
I live in California, and I think a lot of people know that it's crowded, it's expensive. There's not a lot of places to do all the homestead amazing things that I envision, but there are still places where it can work. And I actually am kind of just listening on our our podcast today to get ideas from you ladies, because I know I've shared with you all that is something that we're trying to figure out. Okay, if we were to leave where we are, where would we go? So far, we've as a family, we've liked the idea of narrowing it down to maybe Eastern Oregon or Idaho. Um, but the snow is something that I'm going to have to come to terms with. I have never lived in an area with snow and extreme cold. So the idea of 4 whole seasons is is a completely different life. So so I'm really just listening along to figure out kind of and gain some insight from you ladies on that question.
I just want to add to that, Des, as my fellow Californian, it's just such a shame that the politics in the state have ruined it. Like, we have the best, right? We have the oceans are an hour from the snow, and the weather is amazing, and you can go up north, and the trees are amazing, and there's just so much to do here, outdoor hiking, like all of that. It's just, I don't know. It always makes me a little bit sad to know that, I've been here 50 plus years and, really feel the stirring that it's time to go, because I do love my state. Even though, like Des said, it's expensive and it's currently just becoming kind of a horrible place to live with all of the mandates, and definitely not a place where you want to raise your children. But it's a bummer.
Morgan, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, Des and Kim are in California, and so many people always say, get out of California. But I think California is a huge, huge state. And yes, the politics really do drag down the state. And it's so sad because, like, what you guys are saying, it's such a beautiful state. And but not everywhere feels the same as, like, the big cities. And but I'm sure that a lot of the places in California are, regardless, being affected by a lot of the politics. But that's just something that a lot of people have to consider. Like, they think of when they think of, like, New York, but they're thinking about New York City, not the rural parts of New York or these kinds of things. And like, they think of, like, Austin, in Texas, where very liberal, but the rest of Texas doesn't quite think a lot like Austin. And so it's just, you have to think about the most densely populated places are ruling a lot of the politics, and it could trickle into the other parts of the states. But if you like a state, um don't just think, don't just look at a state and be like, oh well, California's a lost cause, you got to get out of there, you're terrible for being there, blah blah blah. You got to look at it at its entirety. Kim and Des are just fine. And while Kim feels like she's being pulled, it's kind of one of those things of, that's just where she belongs. I don't want to speak for Kim, I'm not trying to, but maybe I know this one person. I'm sorry, this is kind of going in a little rant here, but I know this one person who was just talking to, she wanted to get out of Oregon, but she couldn't, and she just could not afford it. And she has to take care of some people, and she couldn't do it. And so she was like, I'm just going to try to look for a rural place here in Oregon, because not all of Oregon is terrible. There's a lot of really good rural places still. And so she's like, I'm just going to look for more rural places and invest here in Oregon, stick around my family. That's something we also have to think about as well. Family safety, security, are you near your support system, that kind of thing. So while it can be really scary to uproot into a whole new place, maybe you can make it work where you are as well, but maybe just move into a different area of that state, with your family or something like that. Or I don't know, just throwing out ideas.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Morgan. It's like you think of all the different areas, and every area has its big city. Idaho has Boise, and Oregon has Portland, and Washington has Seattle. Um, and those large populated areas really do dictate a lot just because they have that larger population. But there are great, great areas in other parts of those states. So, yeah, I totally, totally agree with what you have to say. Ladies, we are now coming up on almost an hour and 15 minutes. This has been amazing, and thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today and this little group chat. It has been so much fun.
I had a blast. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's all
Thanks.
in
That was
mutants. Go
good.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone all at the same time.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. This was fun. And listeners, I hope that you enjoyed today's conversation. And I think we may do this again. So thanks for listening.
Yes. Thanks all for listening.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening today. And until next time, remember, every little thing matters, and a goal without a plan is just a wish. If you have questions, you can find me on Instagram at thispreparedlife. I'd love to connect with you over there. You can also find me on the internet at www.thispreparedlife.com. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, I would love it if you would leave me a review on Apple Podcasts.